That night, the family group chat lit up. "We've agreed Mom is no longer family." I took a sip of my tea and typed 3 words, powerful enough to sever the money pipeline, cancel automatic payments. By midnight, 106 missed calls fell like hailstones. I sat quietly in my living room, watching the screen vibrate as they finally understood who'd been feeding this family all along. They didn't know that in my silence. I'd held title to 3 apartments under an anonymous LLC, and from here, this story wasn't about money anymore. It was about dignity. My name is Evelyn Hart Eve, to those who still consider me human, and at 62. I've mastered the art of being invisible at my own family's celebrations. The afternoon of Mason's graduation party. I arrived at Lucas and Brianna's Colonial in Ridge Lake with 3 trays of catered food from Belmont's, the lobster rolls they'd specifically requested, and a check for $2,000 tucked discreetly in my purse. The May sun cast perfect shadows through their elm trees, the kind of light that makes everything look like a magazine spread, which was exactly what Brianna wanted. "Mum, you're here?" Lucas said, not looking up from his phone as I struggled through the side gate with the food. No offer to help. His polo shirt still had the tags on another purchase on the company card I'd been paying for 3 years running. The backyard was transformed into what Brianna called understated elegance. String lights zigzagged overhead, mason jars with wildflowers on every table, a photo booth with props that said Class of 2024 and Future CEO. She'd sent me the Pinterest board 2 months ago with a note. "This is the vibe we're going for. Please don't bring your potato salad." Eve, finally. Brianna appeared in a flowing sundress that cost more than most people's rent. "The drinks station needs someone. We're doing signature cocktails. The recipes are laminated. Try not to overpour." She assigned me to the drink station like deploying a soldier to latrine duty. Behind the bar, if you could call a folding table covered in burlap a bar, I found the laminated cards, Mason's Mojito, and Graduate Gimlet. I'd paid for Mason's entire education. But here I was, muddling mint for his friend's parents who didn't know my name. The party filled with Lucas's colleagues from the consulting firm, Brianna's book club women, neighbours whose kids had gone to private school with Mason. They glided past my station, taking drinks with barely a glance, their conversations floating over me: European vacations, kitchen renovations, the new Tesla in the driveway. That Tesla, I knew its payment history intimately. $843 monthly, auto-paid from my account. At 4:30. Brianna clinked a fork against her champagne flute. The crowd hushed. She stood near the pool, Lucas's arm around her waist, Mason between them in his cap and gown. "We just want to thank everyone for being here to celebrate our amazing son," she began, her voice carrying that practiced warmth she used for Instagram stories. "Lucas and I are so grateful for this community, for the teachers at Ridgewood Prep who pushed Mason, for our families." She paused, gesturing vaguely toward Lucas's brother and his wife. "For believing in him." She thanked the caterer, not mentioning who paid, the decorator, her friend Astrid, the heavens themselves practically. But the woman who'd covered 4 years of tuition, room and board, the meal plans, the study abroad semester in Barcelona, a linguistic ghost. I kept my hands steady, slicing limes into perfect wheels. My notebook sat beside the cutting board, and between orders, I jotted figures. The mortgage on this house, $2,300 monthly. The car payments, $843 for the Tesla, $590 for Brianna's BMW. Business credit card averaging $4,000 monthly on client dinners that happened to fall on weekends at steakhouses. Charges from Nordstrom labeled professional attire. Mysterious transactions at Rivers Casino that Lucas called networking events. Mrs. H, could I get 2 mojitos? Mason's friend Tyler asked, the only one who ever remembered I existed. Tyler, you know you're all underage, I said, but poured them anyway. Virgin versions. What did it matter? I was furniture here. As the sun lowered, I watched Mason open gifts at the designated gift table, another Pinterest inspiration. Checks from aunts and uncles, a watch from Lucas's brother, luggage from the book club ladies. My gift, a simple card with a check for $5,000, got shuffled to the bottom of the pile. I saw Brianna glance at it, that little frown she made when something didn't photograph well. The party wore on. Stories were told about Mason's childhood that somehow erased my presence. The science fair project, his parents, helped with. I'd stayed up until 3 building that volcano. The college visits, they took him on. Lucas had been in Chicago on business for all but one. I mixed drinks and smiled and calculated $320,000 over the past 5 years, not counting this party. What they didn't know, what I'd kept hidden behind the careful wall of an LLC named Red Maple Holdings, were the 3 apartment buildings in downtown Ridge Lake. Purchased with my late husband's life insurance and 20 years of careful investment. They generated enough rental income to make everything I gave Lucas and Brianna look like pocket change. But I'd learned long ago that money revealed makes you a target. Money concealed makes you free. As the guests finally trickled out near 9 o'clock, I packed up the drink station while Lucas and Brianna stood by the pool, arms around each other, admiring their success. Mason had already disappeared with friends, my graduation gift forgotten on the table. "Mum, you can use the side gate when you leave," Lucas called out, not turning around. "We need to keep the front clear for the cleaning crew." The side gate. Of course. I loaded my supplies, noting one last autopay notification on my phone, their monthly pest control. $97. Such small indignities, these receipts of my invisibility. But I was done being their silent ATM. That night would be different. That night, everything would change. 3 days after the graduation party, at 9:47 p. My phone buzzed with a notification from the family group chat, the one where I usually just watched Lucas share articles about cryptocurrency and Brianna post Mason's achievements. This time, the message was different. It was addressed to me. "Mom, we need to talk about boundaries," Lucas had typed. "Brianna and I have been discussing this with Mason, and we've agreed it's time for healthier dynamics in our family relationships." Before I could respond, Brianna's message appeared. "We appreciate everything you've done, Eve, but your presence has become emotionally taxing. We need space to function as our own family unit." Then Mason. "Grandma, we think it's best if you don't come to family gatherings for a while. We need to establish our independence." A heart emoji followed his message. The casual cruelty of that little red heart still burns. Lucas again. "We've agreed unanimously. You're no longer welcome at family functions. This is what's best for everyone's mental health." I sat in my kitchen, Earl Grey cooling in my favorite mug, the one Mason had made me in 3rd grade art class with "World's Best Grandma" painted in lopsided letters. The refrigerator hummed. The clock above the stove showed 9:52. I pulled out my phone and typed 3 words that would detonate their carefully constructed life, cancelling automatic payments. Then I opened my banking app. Riverlight Credit Union's interface glowed in the dark kitchen. One by one, I cancelled them all. The mortgage, the Tesla, the BMW, the business credit card, the cell phone family plan, the utilities on their house, Lucas's gym membership, Brianna's yoga studio package, even the Netflix account they'd added 4 extra profiles to. By 10:15, my phone was vibrating itself off the counter. 43 missed calls, texts flooding in. Mum. What do you mean? Mom, answer your phone. This isn't funny. You can't just cut us off. We have bills due tomorrow. Mother, this is financial abuse. I turned the phone to silent and made another cup of tea. Through my kitchen window, I could see the lights of my rental properties downtown, 3 brick buildings that had been textile factories in the 1920s, converted to apartments that now housed young professionals and graduate students. Red Maple Holdings, LLC, registered in Delaware, managed by a property company that direct deposited profits into an account Lucas knew nothing about. At 5:30 a.m., the pounding started. I was already awake, sitting in my living room with coffee and my laptop, reviewing 5 years of bank statements I'd downloaded and organized into spreadsheets. Mom! Lucas's voice boomed through the door. Open up right now. I walked slowly to the door, checking the peephole first. His face was red, hair uncombed, still in yesterday's clothes. Brianna stood behind him, mascara smudged, designer purse clutched like a weapon. I opened the door, but didn't invite them in. Good morning. What the hell do you think you're doing? Lucas pushed past me into the house. Our mortgage payment bounced. The bank called at midnight. You established boundaries, I said calmly, following them into my living room. I'm respecting them. Financial support suggests family connection. Since I'm no longer family, I've adjusted accordingly. Brianna's voice pitched high. You can't destroy our lives over a text message. Interesting, I said, settling into my armchair. You felt comfortable destroying our relationship over a text message, but expect my financial support to continue. That's not how boundaries work. We have bills. Mother? Lucas was pacing now, running his hands through his hair. The mortgage, the cars, Mason's graduate school applications. All adult responsibilities. I interrupted. You're 41 years old. Lucas, Brianna's 38. Perhaps it's time you handled your own finances. This is extortion, Brianna shrieked. No. Extortion would be demanding something from you. I'm simply stopping what I've been giving freely. There's a difference. Lucas's phone rang. He answered, his face going pale. The company card was declined. He whispered to Brianna. At the client dinner last night? I pulled out my notebook, the same one from the graduation party. Would that be the $800 dinner at Morton's? The one you filed as client entertainment, but posted on Instagram as date night? They stared at me, mouths open. I've documented everything, I continued. 5 years of auto-pay receipts, $322,000, not including yesterday's graduated interest. My financial advisor, Marisol Grant, is expecting my call at 9. My attorney, Patricia Voss from Alder & Voss, has an opening at 10:30. Attorney. Lucas's voice cracked. When adult children financially exploit their elderly parents, it's called financial abuse. When those same children claim business expenses for personal use while the parent pays the bills, it might interest both the IRS and your employer. Brianna sank onto my couch without permission. Eve, please. We can talk about this. We are talking. You wanted boundaries. I'm establishing mine. You're no longer authorized users on my accounts. You're no longer beneficiaries of my automatic payments. You're no longer welcome to treat me as an ATM while denying me basic respect. What about Mason? Lucas played his last card. You'd hurt your grandson. Mason's 22 with a degree you made sure everyone knew you were so proud of. He can get a job. It might teach him what you never learned, that money comes from work, not from grandmothers you voted off the family island. I stood up, walking to the door. You should go. I have appointments to prepare for. They didn't move immediately, frozen in the wreckage of their assumptions. Finally, Brianna stood, grabbing Lucas's arm. As they walked to the door, she turned back. You'll regret this. The only thing I regret, I said quietly, is not doing it sooner. The door closed behind them with a satisfying click. By 6:45, my phone showed 106 missed calls. I turned it off entirely, poured another coffee, and called Marisol Grant's office to confirm our 9 o'clock appointment. The conference room at Marisol Grant's office smelled like leather and good decisions. At 9 a.m. sharp, she spread 5 years of financial records across the mahogany table like evidence at a crime scene, which, in a way, they were. Eve, what I'm seeing here is systematic financial exploitation, Marisol said, her reading glasses perched on her nose as she scrutinized the statements. 322,000 in direct transfers. But that's just the surface. She pulled out a calculator, her manicured fingers flying over the keys. The business credit card alone, 48,000 last year, in charges that have nothing to do with legitimate business expenses. Steak dinners every Friday, charged as client meetings, golf club memberships as networking fees. And these casino charges, Rivers Casino, I said. Lucas calls them entertainment expenses for clients. At 2 a.m. on Saturdays, Marisol's eyebrow arched. Unless his clients are vampires, that's fraud. She created columns on her legal pad. Money given, money stolen, money misrepresented. The stolen column grew fastest unauthorized charges on cards, where I was the primary holder. Bills they'd switched to autopay from my accounts without telling me. The time Brianna used my social security number to open a Nordstrom card for emergencies. This is elder abuse under Ohio state law, Marisol said flatly. You're over 60. They've taken advantage of your trust, and there's a clear pattern of deception. At 10:30, I sat in Patricia Voss's office 3 blocks away. The attorney looked like she ate corporate lawyers for breakfast, silver hair in a power bob, suit that could cut glass, eyes that missed nothing. Marisol sent me the preliminary numbers, Patricia said, sliding a contract across her desk. We need to move fast. First, we restructure everything to protect your remaining assets. She outlined the plan with military precision. Remove Lucas and Brianna as authorized users on all accounts immediately done. Transfer the rental properties from the LLC to an irrevocable trust in progress. Change all beneficiary designations today. Review every document they'd ever had access to starting now. They've been claiming you as a dependent on their taxes, Patricia discovered, scrolling through documents on her tablet. While you were paying their bills. What? The tax credit for caring for an elderly parent. They've been collecting it for 3 years while you supported them. That's tax fraud. Eve. My stomach turned. Every humiliation at that graduation party. Every time they'd made me feel small. And behind my back, they were claiming to care for me. We demand full accounting and restitution. Patricia continued. Every penny documented, every fraudulent charge returned. If they refuse, we file both civil and criminal complaints. Criminal: financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, tax fraud, potentially identity theft with that Nordstrom card. Your son could lose his consulting license. His employer would have to be notified about the misuse of company cards. I thought about Lucas at 5, crying because kids at school teased him about his second-hand bike. I'd worked double shifts that Christmas to buy him a new one. "Do it," I said. Patricia smiled like a shark. "There's something else. Your grandson Mason, he called my office this morning." My heart stuttered. "Mason. He wants to make a statement. Apparently, he overheard his parents coaching each other on how to gaslight you about your mental capacity if you ever questioned the money. He's been keeping recordings." The room tilted slightly. Sweet Mason, who'd made me that mug, who'd called me after every college exam, had been watching his parents plan to destroy me if necessary. At noon, I met with my banker at Riverlight Credit Union. We went through every account, changing passwords, adding fraud alerts, pulling 3 years of statements. The banker, Jennifer, had known me for 20 years. "Mrs. Hart, I noticed unusual patterns but couldn't say anything due to privacy laws," she said quietly. "I'm glad you're taking action." By 2 p.m., I'd visited 3 more institutions, freezing cards, removing authorized users, documenting everything. At each stop, the pattern became clearer. Lucas and Brianna had built their entire lifestyle on my foundation while preparing to declare me incompetent if I ever questioned it. The phone in my purse buzzed constantly. I'd turned it back on to document the harassment. 243 calls, texts ranging from rage to negotiation to threats. "You're destroying your family. Mason will never forgive you. We'll have you declared incompetent. No nursing home will take you when you're old and alone. You'll die without anyone who loves you." That last one from Brianna at 3:47 p.m. I saved it specially for Patricia. At 4 p.m. I sat in my car outside the bank, finally checking my voicemail. One message stood out: Mason, his voice shaky but determined. "Grandma, it's me. I know you're not answering, and I understand why. I should have stopped them. I should have said something at the party, in the group chat. All those times I'm sorry. I gave a statement to your lawyer. They don't know yet. I'm moving back to campus early. I love you. You deserved so much better from all of us." I played it 3 times, sitting in that bank parking lot, watching normal families go about their Tuesday afternoon errands. A grandmother walked by holding her granddaughter's hand, both laughing about something. That should have been us. Could have been us. But Lucas and Brianna had chosen money over family, and then had the audacity to banish me when the wallet stayed open. Patricia called at 5:15. "Eve, I've just received an interesting call from Lucas's lawyer. Apparently they scraped together one. They want to meet. They're scared." "Good. It gets better. That company credit card, his employer called him in for an emergency audit based on an anonymous tip. Funny how these things happen." "Hilarious." I agreed. "They're offering to pay back $50,000 over 10 years if we drop everything." "Patricia, I have 3 apartment buildings they know nothing about. I don't need their money. I need my dignity back." Then we proceed. Full audit, full restitution, full consequences. Yes. That night, I sat in my kitchen with all the documentation spread before me. 5 years of being bled dry, not just financially, but emotionally. Every receipt a reminder of how little I'd mattered, except as a funding source. The graduation party had been the perfect metaphor. I was good enough to pay for everything, but not good enough to be acknowledged. At 11 p. Lucas tried one more time. A text, no longer angry but pleading, "Mum, please, we can work this out. We're family." I typed back, "According to your group chat, we're not. My attorney will be in touch." Then I blocked his number. Brianna's too? Mason. I left open he'd chosen courage in the end. Tomorrow would bring the formal demand letter, the asset freeze requests, the fraud documentation to Lucas's employer. But tonight? I poured a glass of wine and stood at my window, looking at those 3 buildings downtown, lit up against the darkness. My secret empire, built on decades of careful planning while they assumed I was just a foolish old woman with a checking account. They were about to learn exactly who Evelyn Hart really was. The next 2 weeks were surgical in their precision, while Lucas and Brianna scrambled to save their collapsing house of cards. I moved my pieces across the board with the patience of someone who'd waited 5 years for this moment. First, the rental properties. On a Thursday morning at 8 a, I sat in the offices of Hartman and Associates, the property management company that had handled Red Maple Holdings LLC for the past decade. Nobody in my family knew about this relationship. Not even my late husband had known the full scope before he passed. Mrs. Hart, the transfer from the LLC to the irrevocable trust is complete, said David Hartman, sliding documents across his desk. Your 3 properties are now protected from any potential claims or litigation. The building's former textile factories, converted into 54 rental units, generated $12,000 monthly in profit after expenses. Clean money, honest money. Nothing like the stolen funds Lucas had been siphoning. I want to update the trust beneficiaries, I said, signing where David indicated. Remove Lucas Hale entirely. And the new beneficiary. Mason Hale gets 25% when he turns 30, if he's employed full-time for at least 5 consecutive years before then. The rest goes to the Ridge Lake Community Foundation. David nodded, making notes. That's ironclad. No way to contest it after your passing. Good. My son chose to treat me as a bank, not a mother. Banks don't leave inheritances. Next came the paper trail excavation. Patricia had hired a forensic accountant named Ruth Steinberg, who treated financial fraud like archaeology. In her downtown office at 10:30 a.m., she walked me through 5 years of discoveries that made my stomach turn. Your son added himself as a co-signer on 3 loans without your knowledge, Ruth said, her finger tracking down a spreadsheet. A boat you've never seen, a motorcycle he crashed 2 years ago, and a $20,000 business loan that went directly to Brianna's failed boutique. Her boutique, Brianna's Bliss, LLC, dissolved after 8 months. But the loan payments continued from your account. She never told you. The humiliations kept compounding. While I'd been mixing drinks at Mason's graduation, wearing the simple dress Brianna had passive-aggressively suggested would be appropriate. They'd been dressing in clothes bought with my money, living in a house I paid for, driving cars I'd financed. Every signature needs to be challenged. Ruth continued. Some of these documents show signs of forgery. Your signature on the boat loan doesn't match your normal writing pattern. Patricia had been right. This was criminal. At 1 p. I met with Mason at a coffee shop downtown. He looked hollow, dark circles under his eyes. wearing the same Ohio State hoodie I'd bought him freshman year. "Grandma, I'm so sorry," he started, but I held up my hand. "Tell me about the recordings." He pulled out his phone, shoulders hunched. 3 months ago, I heard them talking in Dad's study. They didn't know I was home. The recording was clear. Brianna's voice. If she ever questions the money, we say she's showing signs of dementia. My mother went the same way. Lucas responding, "We'd need documentation. Maybe stage a few incidents. Leave the stove on when we visit. Misplace her keys." My coffee turned to acid in my stomach. They'd been planning to have me declared incompetent. "There's more," Mason said, swiping to another file. "Last month, after you paid for the graduation party." Lucas's voice again. "Once Mom's gone, those rental properties will set us up for life." Brianna. "How much longer do you think she's 62? Could be 20 years. Lucas. "Not if she's in a home. Power of attorney. Sell everything. Set ourselves up properly." I stared at my grandson. "How long have you known about the properties?" "Dad found out last year. He hired someone to follow you. Saw you visiting the buildings. He and Mom have been planning ever since." The violation felt complete. Even my secrets weren't safe from their greed. "Mason, why are you telling me this now?" His eyes filled with tears. "Because at the graduation party, watching you serve drinks while Mom gave that speech, I realized I was becoming them. Taking your money for grad school while letting them treat you like hired help. I can't be that person. What will you do now?" "I'm getting a job, returning the graduation money, student loans if I go to grad school." He pushed an envelope across the table. "This is everything you gave me for graduation, plus the recordings on a flash drive for your lawyer." I left the envelope on the table. "Keep the money. You're earning it back with your integrity. But Mason testifying against your parents will change everything." "Everything needs to change," he said quietly. That afternoon at 3 o'clock, I executed the final phase of my strategic silence. Every document showing co-signing, every authorized user agreement, every paper trail that connected me to their financial empire, I filed revocations for all of it. The call from Lucas came at 4:17 p.m., blocked number, but I knew his patterns. "Mum, Harbour Financial just called. They're demanding full payment on the boat loan. $43,000 in 30 days, or they're seizing assets." "That's unfortunate," I said calmly, organizing my papers for tomorrow's meeting with Patricia. "They said you revoked your co-signature." "I revoked a forgery. The forensic accountant found 17 discrepancies in the signature. That's identity theft. Lucas." Silence. Then, quieter. "You're really going to destroy us?" "No, I'm extracting myself from your collapse. What happens next is the consequence of your choices." "We could lose everything." "Yes, you could. Just like you decided I should lose my family. Boundaries, remember." He hung up. 15 minutes later. A text from Brianna. "You win. We'll do whatever you want. Please stop this." I forwarded it to Patricia with a note. "They're ready to negotiate." But I wasn't. Not yet. They'd planned to take my freedom, my agency, my life's work. They'd assigned me to the drinks table at my grandson's graduation while plotting to lock me away and steal everything I'd built. That evening, I stood in the living room of my largest rental building, watching young families come home from work. The Johnsons in 3B, a teacher and a nurse with twin toddlers. The graduate student in 2A who always helped carry groceries. The elderly couple in 1C who reminded me what marriage should look like. Good people paying fair rent for safe, clean homes I'd preserved and renovated with respect. Lucas and Brianna would never have seen these people. They'd have seen dollar signs, opportunities to raise rent, corners to cut. They'd have destroyed what I'd carefully built, just like they'd tried to destroy me. My phone rang. Patricia. Eve. Their lawyer just sent a panic offer. Full restitution of 100,000, public apology, permanent no contact order if we drop the criminal charges. Criminal charges haven't been filed yet. They don't know that. Lucas's company put him on administrative leave pending the audit. Brianna's been dropped from 3 charity boards. Someone leaked the story. Someone. Amazing what court filing clerks overhear and share at happy hour. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Tell them we'll see them at mediation. Full forensic audit first. Then we'll discuss what justice looks like. Eve, are you sure you want to go this far? I thought about that graduation party, the side gate, the drinks table, the speech that erased my existence, the group chat that voted me off the island, the recordings of them planning to steal my sanity along with my money. Patricia. They were planning to have me declared incompetent and institutionalized to steal my properties. So yes, I'm sure. Then we proceed. Full steam ahead. That night, I slept better than I had in years. Not because I was winning, because finally, I wasn't silent anymore. 3 weeks into the legal battle, Brianna made her first mistake. She hired an attorney named Mitchell Crawford, who specialized in elder abuse cases, except he usually defended the elderly, not the accused adult children. The irony wasn't lost on anyone when Patricia received his filing. They're claiming you're the abuser, Patricia said, sliding the documents across her desk at our 8 a.m. meeting. Emotional manipulation through financial control. They're calling it. Says here you've created deliberate economic hardship to coerce family reconciliation. I actually laughed. I stopped giving them money, and that's abuse. It gets better. They're claiming mental incapacity, saying your sudden decision to cut them off indicates cognitive decline. Despite the fact I managed to coordinate with lawyers, accountants, and financial institutions, logic isn't their strong suit. But Eve, this escalation means they're desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. She was right. The stupid things started that very afternoon, at 2:30 p.m. I was at Riverside Market buying groceries when I noticed Brianna 3 aisles over, phone raised, clearly recording me. I continued shopping, making sure to read every label carefully, calculate prices in my head out loud, discuss recipes with the butcher, all evidence of perfect mental acuity. Mrs. Hart called Sylvia, one of my tenants from Building 2. How's the renovation planning going for the new units? I smiled, knowing Brianna was listening. Excellent. Sylvia. The architect submitted plans for converting the basement storage into 2 more apartments. Should increase monthly revenue by 3,000. Brianna's phone shook slightly. She hadn't known about the renovation potential. That evening, Mason called. Grandma? Mom hired a private investigator. He's been following you. I know. He drives a blue Ford Fusion, parks outside my house every morning at 7, follows me to any appointments. Very obvious. You're not concerned? Why would I be? Let him document me attending business meetings, managing properties, handling complex financial transactions. Every photo he takes proves I'm competent. There's something else. Dad's been reaching out to your friends, trying to get them to say you've been acting strange. My book club, my volunteer friends at Northwind Civic Foundation, the neighbours I'd known for 30 years. And Mrs. Patterson told him to, and I quote, "Go to hell." Mrs. Rodriguez threatened to call the police if he contacted her again. My throat tightened. These women had seen Lucas grow up, attended his wedding, celebrated Mason's birth. Now they saw him for what he'd become. 2 days later, Patricia called with unexpected news. "Mitchell Crawford wants to depose you. Tomorrow, if possible." That's unusually fast. He's fishing, looking for inconsistencies, signs of confusion, anything to support their claims. Are you ready? I've been ready for 5 years. The deposition took place in Crawford's office, a sterile room with fluorescent lighting designed to create discomfort. Crawford looked like every TV lawyer, silver temples, expensive suit, predatory smile. Lucas and Brianna sat across the table, unable to meet my eyes. "Mrs. Hart, do you understand why we're here today?" Crawford began. "You're here to prove I'm mentally incompetent because I stopped financing your client's lifestyle. I'm here to document their continued harassment and financial exploitation." His smile faltered. "Let's discuss the night you cut off financial support. Were you drinking tea? Earl Grey? I can provide the brand if relevant. Had you taken any medication? Vitamin D and calcium? Again, I can provide brands." Patricia interrupted. "Counselor, do you have any actual evidence of incapacity? Or are we going to waste 4 hours on fishing?" Crawford shuffled papers. "Mrs. Hart, you claim financial exploitation, yet you freely gave this money." "Correct. Under false pretenses. I was told the business credit card was for legitimate expenses. I've documented 800 restaurant charges claimed as client dinners that Lucas posted on social media as date nights. Can you prove?" I pulled out my tablet, prepared by Ruth. Every charge cross-referenced with social media posts, timestamps included. January 15th, Morton's Steakhouse, $900 charged as client entertainment. Instagram post at 8:43 p.m. Anniversary dinner with my beautiful wife. Would you like to see all 800? Lucas shifted uncomfortably. Brianna stared at the table. Crawford changed tactics. "Your son says you've been forgetting things, missing appointments." "Which appointments?" "He mentioned several lunches. I have every text message saved. Lucas cancelled every one of those lunches, usually last minute when something better came up. Here's the thread from April. Mom, can't make lunch. Client emergency." The client emergency was a golf tournament, according to his Facebook post that day. For 3 hours, Crawford threw every angle possible, each time. I had documentation. Patricia barely needed to speak. I'd come armed with 5 years of evidence. Finally, Crawford played what he thought was his ace. "Mrs. Hart, are you aware your son has power of attorney?" The room went silent. Lucas straightened, a smirk playing at his lips. "I'm aware he forged power of attorney documents," I said calmly. "The notary whose stamp appears on those papers, she died in 2019. Hard to notarize from the grave." The smirk vanished. Brianna grabbed Lucas's arm. Patricia leaned forward. "We'll be filing criminal charges for fraud, forgery, and identity theft tomorrow morning. Unless you'd like to discuss settlement now," Crawford requested a break. Through the conference room's glass door, I watched him argue with Lucas and Brianna in the hallway, his arms gesturing wildly. Brianna was crying. Lucas's face had turned the peculiar shade of purple I remembered from his teenage tantrums. When they returned, Crawford looked defeated. My clients would like to propose a settlement. Full restitution, Patricia stated. 322,000 in documented transfers, plus 58,000 in fraudulent charges, plus interest and legal fees. Call it 450,000 even? They don't have that kind of money, Crawford admitted. Then we proceed with criminal charges, Patricia said, starting to pack her briefcase. The DA is particularly interested in the elder abuse angle. Wait. Brianna spoke for the first time. What if we agreed to full restitution over time payment plans? Your clients declared my client not family via text message. Patricia responded, Why would she enter into a payment agreement with non-family? I stood up. I want one thing beyond the money, a public acknowledgement of what you've done, not hidden in legal documents, a full statement to everyone you've lied to about me. Lucas's face contorted. You want to humiliate us? No. Lucas, you humiliated me at Mason's graduation, in that group chat, in every conversation where you painted me as a burden while spending my money. I want the truth told. Once, Brianna whispered urgently to Crawford, who sighed. We need time to consider this. 24 hours, Patricia said. Then we file charges. As we left, I passed Lucas in the hallway. For a moment, our eyes met. I saw the little boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who'd cried when his goldfish died, who'd promised to take care of me when Daddy went to heaven. Mum, he started. My attorney will be in touch, I said, and kept walking. That night, Mason texted, Grandma, I'm proud of you. Dad and Mom are at home screaming at each other. The investigator quit when they couldn't pay him. Their lawyer threatened to withdraw if they don't settle. You did it? I hadn't done it yet, but I was close. Tomorrow. They'd either accept my terms or face criminal prosecution. Either way, my silence was over. The graduation party felt like years ago now, that woman serving drinks, accepting dismissal, financing the very people who plotted her disposal. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone who understood that family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about respect. And those who can't give it don't deserve its privileges. The mediation center occupied the third floor of a converted bank building downtown, its conference rooms designed to feel neutral beige walls, abstract art that meant nothing, round tables to avoid anyone sitting at the head, at 9 a.m., sharp on a Tuesday that would change everything. We assembled for what Crawford had optimistically called reconciliation mediation. Lucas and Brianna entered looking like they'd aged 5 years in 5 weeks. His consulting firm Polo had been replaced by an ill-fitting suit, her designer ensemble swapped for department store professional wear. The financial freeze had already begun its work. The mediator, Janet Caruso, had reviewed our files in advance. Her expression suggested she'd seen family money disputes before, but rarely ones this extensively documented. We're here to find a resolution that prevents criminal prosecution while addressing financial restitution, she began. Mr. and Mrs. Hale, you've prepared an offer. Crawford cleared his throat. My clients propose $50,000 over 10 years, with a written apology. Patricia actually laughed. Your clients stole $322,000, committed fraud totaling $58,000 more, and plan to have my client institutionalized to steal properties worth over $2 million. $50,000 is insulting. We don't have $400,000, Lucas said flatly. The house is mortgaged to the limit. Cars are being repossessed next week. And I'm on unpaid leave pending the company's investigation. Whose investigation was triggered by your fraudulent use of company cards? Patricia reminded him. Choices have consequences. Janet studied her notes. Mrs. Hart, what would satisfy you beyond monetary restitution? I'd prepared for this moment, but sitting across from my son and his wife, I needed to steady myself. Full repayment within 5 years, starting with liquidation of all luxury assets. Public acknowledgement of the financial abuse not buried in legal documents, but communicated to everyone they've portrayed me to as incompetent or difficult. That's social suicide, Brianna protested. As opposed to the social murder you attempted on me. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to saved messages. Quote, Eve's losing it. We're so worried about her mind. Sent to my book club. Quote, she's becoming paranoid about money. Might need intervention. Sent to my neighbors. Quote, classic signs of dementia, just like my mother. Sent to extended family. You tried to erase my credibility before stealing my assets. Janet made notes. Continue, Mrs. Hart. I also want the truth about the rental properties revealed. The room stilled. Lucas and Brianna exchanged panicked glances. What truth? Janet asked. I placed a folder on the table. 6 months ago, Lucas hired a private investigator to follow me. He discovered I own 3 rental buildings through an LLC. Since then, he and Brianna have been planning to have me declared incompetent to gain control of these properties. Crawford shifted uncomfortably. His clients hadn't disclosed this to him. That's not, Lucas started. Mason recorded your conversations. I interrupted. Would you like me to play them for the mediator? Silence. Patricia pulled out her laptop. My client owned these properties before her son's marriage, purchased with her late husband's life insurance and managed independently. They generate significant income that Lucas and Brianna have been attempting to access through fraud. I hit play on my phone. Lucas's recorded voice filled the room. Once we get power of attorney, we sell everything. Mom goes to Sunset Manor, the cheap one off Highway 12. Medicare covers most of it. Brianna's voice followed. 3 buildings downtown. That's what? 2 million, 3 Lucas, more. With development potential. Maybe 4. The recording continued their detailed plan to institutionalize me, sell my properties, live off the proceeds. Janet's expression hardened with each word. Turn it off, Lucas said quietly. I did, but pulled out another document. There's more. This is the forged power of attorney with the notary who'd been dead for 4 years. This is the Nordstrom card opened with my social security number. These are the loan documents you forged my signature on. Crawford stood up. I need to speak with my clients privately. Sit down, Janet said firmly. Mrs. Hart. What else? I placed my final card on the table, a single sheet of paper. This is my proposal to create the Robert Hart Memorial Scholarship Fund, named for my late husband. One of my rental buildings will be sold. Proceeds funding full college scholarships for first-generation students in Ridge Lake. What does this have to do with mediation? Crawford asked. I'm showing that while your clients plotted to steal my assets for personal gain, I'd already planned to use them for community benefit. The sale will happen regardless. But I wanted Lucas to know these properties he schemed to steal were meant to help kids like he used to be. Kids whose parents work multiple jobs to afford opportunities. Lucas's jaw clenched. He knew exactly what I meant. He'd been that kid once, before money changed him. Brianna suddenly spoke up. We'll agree to full restitution. Everyone turned to her. We'll sell everything, she continued, her voice breaking. The house, the cars, the jewelry. Lucas's father left him a collection of vintage watches he never told you about, probably worth 100,000. We'll liquidate it all. Brianna, Lucas hissed. No. Lucas, I'm done. Your mother paid for our entire life while we plotted to lock her away. I can't. She turned to me, tears streaming. Eve, I grew up poor. I thought marrying Lucas meant security. When I saw those buildings, I went crazy with greed. But hearing that recording, hearing us plan to dispose of you like garbage, my own mother died in a home like Sunset Manor, alone. I became a monster. Brianna, stop talking. Crawford warned. She ignored him. We'll pay it all back, every penny. And we'll sign whatever you want, no contact orders, public admissions, whatever brings you peace. Lucas stared at his wife like she'd betrayed him. You're destroying us. We destroyed ourselves, she replied. The moment we typed that text, saying your mother wasn't family anymore. Janet looked between all parties. Mrs. Hart, does this change your position? I studied Brianna's face. Genuine remorse is rare in these rooms. I'd learned that from Patricia. But I saw it now, not just regret at being caught, but horror at who she'd become. Patricia, draft the agreement. Full restitution within 3 years, not 5. Public acknowledgement sent to everyone they contacted about my supposed mental decline. Permanent no-contact order with violations resulting in criminal prosecution. And Lucas. My son finally met my eyes. The scholarship fund will happen either way, but I'm naming Mason as the Foundation's junior board member. He'll help decide who gets help, since he chose truth over greed. Maybe he can teach you both something about integrity. Crawford started to object, but Janet cut him off. This is more than fair, given the criminal alternatives. Mr. and Mrs. Hale, do you accept these terms? Brianna nodded immediately. Lucas sat frozen, calculating losses that had already compounded beyond recovery. Finally, slowly, he nodded too. Draw up the papers, I said, standing. But I want one more thing. Everyone waited. The graduation party photo, the one where I'm cropped out serving drinks while you're toasting. I want a written acknowledgement that I paid for that entire event, that I was relegated to service, and that you deliberately excluded me from the family photos. It was petty, perhaps, but that photo, posted on Brianna's Facebook with captions about our beautiful family, had been the final insult that triggered everything. Done, Brianna whispered. As papers were drafted and signed, I felt something I hadn't expected, not satisfaction, but sadness. This was my child across the table, the baby I'd carried, raised, loved unconditionally. Now we were strangers, bound only by legal documents and debt. But then I remembered the recording, Mum Goes to Sunset Manor, the cheap one off Highway 12. They'd planned to warehouse me like unwanted furniture while stealing everything I'd built. My sadness evaporated. The signing took an hour. When finished, Lucas stood to leave without a word. At the door, he turned back. I hope you're happy, he said. I hope you learn, I replied. After they left, Patricia and I sat in the empty conference room, outside. Ridge Lake carried on, people working, living, building lives based on mutual respect rather than exploitation. You know you won't see most of that money, Patricia said gently. I know, but they'll spend years paying it back. remembering why every single month. And the properties, safe in the trust. The scholarship fund launches next year. Mason will help run it after he finishes graduate school, which he's now paying for himself. Patricia smiled. You know what the best part is? That graduation party started all this. Their own arrogance triggered their downfall. I thought about that night, the string lights, the perfect Pinterest decorations, my invisible presence at the drink station. How different things might have been if they'd simply said, "Thank you, Mom," during that speech. But they hadn't. And now, finally, the debt was being paid. The emergency hearing was scheduled for 8 on a Friday that smelled like justice. The courthouse in downtown Ridgelake had seen its share of family disputes, but according to Patricia, rarely one this thoroughly documented. Judge Margaret Chen, no relation to anyone in our story, had reviewed the case file and specifically requested this expedited hearing after Crawford tried to delay proceedings by filing the elder abuse claim. I entered the courtroom wearing the same navy suit I'd worn to my husband Robert's funeral 12 years ago. It felt appropriate, another ending, another beginning. Lucas and Brianna sat at the defendant's table looking smaller than I'd ever seen them. Their attempt at a power play had backfired spectacularly. The criminal charges Patricia had filed after mediation fraud, forgery, identity theft, and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult had triggered this hearing. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Judge Chen entered. A woman in her 60s with eyes that had seen every variation of human greed. She settled behind the bench and opened the thick file before her. "We're here on multiple matters," she began. The defendant's motion claiming elder abuse against the plaintiff, and the plaintiff's counter-motion for financial exploitation, fraud, and identity theft. I've reviewed extensive documentation from both sides. Crawford stood. "Your Honor, my clients maintain that Mrs. Hart's sudden withdrawal of financial support constitutes..." "Counselor," Judge Chen interrupted. "I've read your filing. You're arguing that an adult woman choosing to stop giving money to her 41-year-old son constitutes elder abuse against herself. The emotional manipulation." "Sit down, Mr. Crawford. Mrs. Voss, please present your counter-motion." Patricia rose smoothly. "Your Honor, we have documented evidence of systematic financial exploitation spanning 5 years. The defendants extracted $322,000 through false pretenses, forged multiple signatures on loans totaling $63,000, committed identity theft by opening credit accounts in my client's name, and conspired to have her declared incompetent to steal properties valued at over $2 million. "That's inflammatory," Crawford protested. "It's factual," Patricia continued, pulling out a tablet. "We have recordings of the defendants planning to institutionalize Mrs. Hart to gain control of her assets. May I play them for the court?" Judge Chen nodded. The courtroom filled with Lucas's voice discussing shipping me to Sunset Manor, Brianna calculating property values, both of them coaching each other on how to gaslight me about my mental capacity. A court reporter typed furiously. A few people in the gallery gasped. Lucas sank lower in his chair. "Additionally," Patricia continued, "we have evidence of forgery. The power of attorney documents the defendants attempted to file show a notary stamp from Margaret Williams, who died in 2019. The boat loan Mr. Hale took out in his mother's name contains 17 signature inconsistencies identified by a forensic document examiner. She placed report after report before the Judge Ruth's forensic accounting, the document examiner's analysis, Mason's sworn affidavit about overhearing his parents' plans, screenshots of text messages where they'd tried to damage my reputation. Judge Chen studied each document carefully. Mr. Hale, Mrs. Hale, stand please. They rose unsteadily. In 30 years on the bench, I've seen adult children treat their parents poorly. But this, she held up the stack of evidence. This is criminal conspiracy. You didn't just take advantage of your mother's generosity, you plotted to destroy her life for money. Your Honor, Crawford attempted. The mediation agreement. The mediation agreement addresses civil restitution. These are criminal matters. Counselor, your clients committed felonies? She turned back to Lucas and Brianna. The motion for elder abuse against Mrs. Hart is denied with prejudice. It's frankly insulting to actual abuse victims. The counter-motion is granted in full. I'm issuing immediate orders for asset freeze on all accounts belonging to Lucas and Brianna Hale pending full restitution. Your Honor, Patricia interjected. There's one additional matter. The defendants have been liquidating and hiding assets since mediation. We request immediate enforcement. Judge Chen's expression darkened. Is this true, Mr. Crawford? Crawford whispered urgently with his clients, then stood. There may have been some transfers to protect basic living expenses. Bailiff, Judge Chen commanded. Please have deputies stand by. She turned back to the defendants. You're attempting to hide assets during legal proceedings. Lucas finally spoke, his voice cracking. Your Honor, we need money to live. Your mother needed respect to live. Mr. Hale, you denied her that while taking her money, you'll figure it out like millions of Americans do with a job and a budget. She began writing orders rapidly. I'm granting comprehensive asset freeze effective immediately. All accounts, properties, and valuables belonging to the defendants are frozen until full restitution is made. Any attempt to circumvent this order will result in immediate incarceration. Furthermore, she continued, I'm referring this case to the District Attorney for criminal prosecution. The evidence of fraud, forgery, and identity theft is overwhelming. Mrs. Hart, do you wish to pursue criminal charges? Every eye turned to me. Lucas looked desperate, Brianna terrified. For a moment, I saw my son at 7, crying over a broken toy, promising to be more careful next time. But then I remembered him coaching Brianna on how to make me seem demented, planning my institutionalization. The graduation party where I was good enough to pay, but not good enough to acknowledge. Yes, Your Honor. I want full prosecution. Judge Chen nodded. The court will recommend charges be filed immediately. Bail will be addressed at arraignment, but given the asset freeze and flight risk, I suspect it will be substantial. She looked directly at Lucas and Brianna. You had a mother who loved you, supported you, gave you everything. In return, you planned to lock her away and steal her life's work. I hope the money you thought you'd gain was worth losing everything that actually mattered. The gavel came down with finality. Asset freeze granted. Criminal referral approved. No contact order enforced with criminal penalties for violation. This court is adjourned. As the bailiff announced, "All rise," 2 deputies approached Lucas and Brianna. We need you to surrender any credit cards, checkbooks, or valuable items on your person. One deputy said. Brianna was crying silently as she handed over her purse. Lucas stood frozen until the deputy repeated the request. I walked past them toward the exit. Lucas called out, "Mum, please." I stopped, but didn't turn around. My attorney will handle any necessary communication. I'm your son. Now I turned, meeting his desperate gaze. According to your text message, I'm not family. Remember, you all agreed unanimously. Patricia guided me out as the deputies continued their asset collection. In the hallway, Mason waited on a bench. He stood when he saw us, his face a mix of relief and sorrow. It's done? He asked. The criminal prosecution is just beginning, Patricia explained. But yes, the immediate matters are resolved. Mason hugged me tightly. I'm sorry you had to do this. Grandma, I'm sorry too, I said into his shoulder. Sorry it took me so long to stop enabling them. Outside the courthouse, the September sun was warming the steps. Camera crews had gathered. Someone had leaked the story of the millionaire grandma's revenge. Patricia shielded me as we walked to her car. They'll probably get probation for the criminal charges, she said once we were driving. First offense, white-collar crime. But the financial consequences will last decades. And the properties? Safe. The scholarship fund can proceed as planned. Your legacy will be helping kids get education, not funding your son's golf weekends. That afternoon, I stood in the living room of my largest rental building, the one I'd decided to sell for the scholarship fund. 24 units that would become 24 futures for kids who might otherwise never attend college. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Local business consultant charged with elder abuse and fraud. The article included the graduation photo, the one where I'd been cropped out. Someone had found the original, showing me in the background at the drinks table, invisible in plain sight. The reporter had done her homework. She'd interviewed neighbours who described how Lucas and Brianna lived lavishly while telling everyone they were supporting me. She'd found social media posts of their vacations, their dinners, their shopping sprees, all time-stamped while they were claiming I was mentally declining. But the most damning quote came from an unnamed source at Lucas's firm. We always wondered how he afforded that lifestyle on his salary. Now we know, elder abuse. I turned off my phone. There would be more headlines, more court dates, more consequences unfolding. But for now, I stood in my building, my asset, my choice, watching the sun set over Ridge Lake. Tomorrow, I'd meet with the architect about the renovation. Next week, I'd interview foundation board members. Next month, the first scholarship applications would open. Lucas and Brianna would spend years paying restitution while rebuilding from nothing. They'd learn what I'd known all along, that money earned honest is worth more than money stolen easy. The graduation party felt like a lifetime ago. That woman serving drinks in silence while her family erased her, she was gone. In her place stood someone who understood that love without respect is just exploitation waiting to happen. And sometimes, the greatest gift you can give your children is the consequence of their choices. The courthouse door opened to October wind that cut through my coat like truth through lies. I gripped the red-sealed court order, the final judgment that ended everything and began everything at once. Behind me, the heavy door swung shut with the kind of finality that makes you know a chapter's over. Patricia had warned me about this moment. When it's done, she'd said, you might feel empty instead of victorious. She was half right. I felt full of the kind of clarity that comes from watching people reveal exactly who they are when money's involved. Outside on the courthouse steps, Lucas stood waiting. Not with Brianna, she'd filed for divorce 2 weeks into the asset freeze. Moving back to Indiana to live with the mother she'd once called toxic, but who still took her calls. Lucas looked older, greyer, wearing a jacket I recognized from 15 years ago when he still knew the value of keeping things that worked. Don't come closer, I said, holding up the no contact order. 50 feet? He stayed where he was. I just wanted you to see what you've done. What I've done? I almost laughed. Lucas, you planned to lock me in a cut-rate nursing home and steal everything I'd built. What I've done is survive your greed. I'm living in a studio apartment. Brianna's gone. My career's over. Are you satisfied? I thought about lying to spare his feelings, the way I'd done his whole life, protecting him from consequences, cushioning his failures, enabling his entitlement. But that woman had retired the night they voted me off their family island. Yes, I said simply. I'm satisfied that justice exists. His face crumbled like it had when he was 5, and realized the tooth fairy wasn't real. But he wasn't 5 anymore. He was a 41-year-old man who'd tried to steal his mother's freedom for money. Mason won't even talk to me, he continued, voice breaking. Mason made his choice. He chose integrity over inheritance. He'll run the scholarship foundation well. That should have been mine. No. Lucas, it should have been ours. A family legacy of helping others. Instead, you made it about yourself, and now it's about everyone except you. A news van pulled up to the curb. The reporter who'd broken the story climbed out with her cameraman. Lucas fled down the steps and around the corner, that 50-foot barrier the only protection from his complete humiliation being broadcast. Mrs. Hart, the reporter called. Any statement about the verdict, I considered the camera, thought about all the elderly parents watching who might recognize their own children's greed in my story. Just this. When someone shows you who they are through their actions, believe them, even if they're family, especially if they're family. The walk to my car felt different, lighter, despite the weight of what had happened. My phone buzzed with texts from the book club, from neighbors, from tenants at my buildings. Support, sympathy, solidarity. The community Lucas and Brianna had tried to turn against me had instead rallied around me. At the parking garage, I found Mason waiting by my car. He held a manila envelope and wore that same Ohio State hoodie, now his armor against everything that had changed. The first scholarship applications, he said, handing me the envelope. 17 kids from Ridge Lake High, all first-generation college hopefuls. I thought you should see them before the board meeting. I opened the first application. Maria Gonzalez, whose parents cleaned offices at night. Perfect grades. Dreams of becoming a doctor. The second, Deshaun Williams, raised by his grandmother, wanting to study engineering. Story after story of kids reaching for more than their circumstances offered. This is what the buildings were always meant to become, I told Mason. Your grandfather would be proud. He'd be proud of you, Grandma, for standing up to them. He never would have let it get this far. Your grandfather had a way of seeing through people that I lost when he died. I wanted so badly to believe Lucas was still the sweet boy who made me Mother's Day cards. Mason pulled something from his pocket, a crumpled Mother's Day card. Handmade. Childish writing. I love you, Grandma. You're the best. My throat tightened. I found this in Dad's desk when they were packing. He kept it all these years, even while planning to throw you away. I don't understand him. Grandma, I don't understand how someone keeps a card like this while recording conversations about institutionalizing the person who gave them everything. I didn't have an answer. Some transformations can't be explained, only observed. Money doesn't change people, it reveals them. and Lucas had been revealed completely. The parking garage echoed with evening traffic, people heading home to families that might love them, might use them, might be something in between. I thought about that graduation party one last time, the string lights, the perfect photos, my invisible presence. How different life becomes when you stop accepting invitations to your own diminishment. I need to tell you something, Mason said. Dad called me last night, from a blocked number, but I knew it was him. He wanted me to convince you to drop the criminal charges. And I hung up. Then I called Patricia to report the contact violation. He'll probably get 30 days in jail. My grandson choosing justice over comfortable lies. Maybe something good would come from this wreckage after all. I drove home through streets I'd travelled for 30 years, past the park where Lucas learned to ride a bike, the school where he'd graduated valedictorian, the church where he'd married Brianna in a ceremony I'd paid for while being seated in the third row. Every landmark, a reminder of what we'd been before money revealed what we really were. At home. My kitchen was exactly as I'd left it that morning. Quiet. Clean. Mine. No more unexpected bills. No more auto-pay notifications. No more being bled dry by people who called it love. I made tea in the mug Mason had crafted, the one that said, "World's Best Grandma," in crooked letters. The evening news led with the story. Local woman wins landmark elder abuse case. They showed the graduation photo again, circling me in the background. And then the courthouse steps, where I'd finally said yes. I was satisfied with justice. My phone rang. Patricia. The district attorney called. Lucas took a plea deal. 2 years probation. 300 hours of community service at, you'll love this, a nursing home. Specifically, Sunset Manor, where he planned to send you. I actually smiled. Poetic justice. The restitution payments start next month. It won't be much at first, but every check will remind them of what greed cost them. After we hung up, I stood at my window overlooking downtown Ridge Lake. My 3 buildings, now 2, with one being sold for scholarships, stood solid against the darkening sky. Below, tenants came home from work, regular people paying fair rent for safe homes. They'd never know how close those buildings had come to being stolen, converted to luxury condos by children who saw dollar signs instead of human beings. The family group chat still existed on my phone, archived but accessible. The last message remained, Lucas's, "We've agreed unanimously. You're no longer welcome at family functions." Below it, my response, cancelling automatic payments. 3 words that changed everything. 3 words that saved me from a nursing home, from being declared incompetent, from losing everything I'd built. 3 words that revealed the truth about love, money, and the price of dignity. Tomorrow, there would be foundation meetings, scholarship reviews, and the ongoing work of building a legacy that actually mattered. But tonight, I sat in my kitchen, in my home, with my freedom intact and my dignity restored. The courthouse door had closed on one story, the story of a mother who gave too much to children who took even more. But it opened another, the story of a woman who finally understood that sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable those who would destroy you for profit. The graduation party was truly over now, not just the event, but everything it represented. The servitude disguised as service, the invisibility presented as humility, the financial abuse wrapped in family obligation. I raised my tea mug in a toast to no one and everyone. Thank God I stayed silent until I was ready to roar. The evening news had ended. The phone had stopped ringing, and somewhere across town, Lucas was learning to live on his own merit for the first time in 20 years. Justice tastes like Earl Grey, I discovered, served hot, in a grandchild's handmade mug, in a kitchen no one can take away. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Eve's situation? Your stories and perspectives make this community special. Until next time, remember, your dignity is worth more than any dollar amount.